What I want to do today is move that outlet down below up to countertop height. This is my pantry and I'm going to put a countertop in here and I need an outlet at countertop height. So I have this outlet right here. I've got power to that outlet, so that's a good place to tap into the power. The tricky part is when you run the cable from this new outlet down to this old outlet, existing outlet, how do you connect the cable? How do you get it into the electrical box that's behind that wall plate? And it's a difficult thing to do unless you're able to take that electrical box out of the wall through the hole. I should say it's a difficult thing to do without cutting a big piece of drywall out. Obviously, you can cut a big piece of drywall out around that outlet and work on it while it's still mounted to the stud. But the idea is we want to avoid doing drywall work. So how can I do it without damaging the drywall? And so the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to remove that outlet box and replace it with a new one. And I have to replace it with a new one because I'm going to destroy the old one as I get it out. And these are the tools I need to do that. And I will demonstrate those tools as I go along. The two screwdrivers, the flathead and cross tip, are for removing the outlet plate and outlet. And because you got to have the wires free to pull through the box when you're taking the box out. But I'll demonstrate what I'm doing with each of the other 4 tools there as I take that outlet box out. Now, if you have an outlet box that's a cut-in outlet box, if you take the faceplate off and down there and you find out it's got a cut-in outlet box, then you don't need to do anything. You can just loosen these 2 screws up. After you take the outlet cover and outlet out, you can loosen these 2 screws up and pull this outlet box out of the wall. Also, if you have an outlet box like this where the screws are accessible from the inside, then you can do the same thing. You just unscrew those screws and pull the outlet box out of the wall. The outlet boxes in this house have a plastic molded tab on the top and bottom of the outlet box with a nail running through it that they've hammered into the wall stud. And you can't get to that nail even when you take the wall plate off and the outlet out. You can't get to the nail, it's behind the drywall. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to cut that old outlet box out and we're going to put one of these new ones in to replace it. And then I'll be able to easily splice the wire into that circuit that I'm going to, or the cable into that circuit down there to have an outlet up here at countertop height. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, you can see I pulled the outlet cover off. I forgot to mention, before you do anything working on electrical circuits in your home, you need to make sure you've cut the power at the circuit breaker panel for that circuit. So this outlet is in the pantry. There's a circuit breaker marked pantry. I flipped that off and I came up here with a voltmeter and tested to make sure I had 0 voltage at this outlet. That's just a safety thing to make sure you don't get a shock. Okay, here you can see I pulled the outlet out. I just need to unscrew this green screw right here for the ground wire, and then the neutral wire and the hot wire are plugged into little holes here in the back. So I'll just cut those off right there and restrip for when I reinstall it into the outlet later. So there it is with the outlet removed. Now this outlet happened to be at the end of the circuit. There's 2 other outlets here in the pantry, so this just happens to be at the very end of the circuit. That's why there's only 1 hot wire and 1 neutral wire at this outlet. If there were a second set of hot and neutral and ground wires at this outlet, then that would mean this outlet's not at the end of the circuit. And you would just handle those wires the same way. Okay, I added a 5th tool. I added the box cutter utility blade here. And what you need that for is, you can clearly see this edge of the outlet box, but you've got drywall covering up these edges here. And that's not really covering up that edge. But these two edges are covered up. You got to pull that box out of the hole. You're trying to pull that box out of the hole, so you need to clear off these two edges. So you just take your knife and you just cut along there, clear that out, so you can get a nice clean opening there to pull that box out once you've got it removed from the stud. You just don't want to go too wide on this opening because you want to cover it up with the outlet plate without having to do any drywall repair. Okay, so just clean that out enough to get that out. Just pointing out again here that this outlet box is going to have to be cut out because it's not a cut-in outlet box, so there are no screws visible to loosen tabs, and there's no screws inside the box screwing it into the stud. The stud's on that side there. So that's why we're doing the process we're getting ready to do. Now that we've got that ready to pull out, we have to detach it from the stud. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to hold these wires out of the way with one hand, and we're going to cut about 3/4 of an inch to an inch in with the Dremel cutting tool. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around all four sides of the box. We'll be moving the wire out of the way with the other hand as we do this. And what we're trying to do is get this front 3/4 of an inch to an inch completely cut through from the back of the box. Okay, the smoke gets generated when you're cutting into the wall stud there, the wooden 2x4 wall stud, and that will generate the smoke. But as long as you don't stay in one spot and allow it to get hot enough to turn the flame, you'll be okay. So you can see here, I've just pulled the front edge of this out. I probably could have taken a little more off because I was hoping to have the nails right there visible. But what we'll do at this point, we may take a little bit more off, but for right now, the next step is to take your pry bar. Any pry bar will do, as long as you can get it in here behind this. The thing to be mindful of, what you're going to do is you're going to try and pry that electrical box off the stud. And while you're doing that, you're not paying attention to what's going on out here, and you're damaging drywall. So be careful not to damage that drywall if at all possible. It may happen and you may have to do a little bit of touch up, but get that thing, there we go. Just trying to get it behind there. Okay, now I've got it in there. And this part you're just gonna have to work, keep working at it until you get it away from the wall. Okay, the bottom nail is out. Let me just show you that. Okay, that's the bottom nail right down in here. And it's going through that bracket on the outside of this electrical box. And so I've got it all the way out of the wall. What we're gonna later do is try to push that through the outlet box so that it, because where it's at right now, we still won't be able to pull the outlet box out. Okay, I've got the top nail out of the stud and I bent the electrical box down so you can see how it's fastened to that top of that electrical box. So I'm going to try and work those two nails out of those brackets that are holding them, because the nails have to come out before you can pull the electrical box out. And you can do whatever you need to do to get them out. I think I can work that out with a pair of pliers. But if you can't, you can try cutting those blue tabs off. I've done both in the past. Okay, I managed to work the top nail out by just simply starting at the pointed end of the nail, grabbing it with the needle nose and pushing it towards the electrical box until I pushed it as far as I could go. Then I moved the electrical box down to where I could get to the top part of the nail, just under the head, and then I grabbed with the needle nose again and then pulled up on the nail as I'm trying to pull it out of that clamp system that's holding it on the electrical box. And that worked real well for the top. Now I'm going to try and do the same thing with the bottom. I got it up here where I can, let me just try to adjust this. Okay, you can see here, this is the end of the nail. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm just going to grab it with the needle nose and hold the electrical box, try to hold the electrical box in place while I push it in there. I was able to push it a good inch or more. Just one good shove. All right, so now it's just the little pointy nub of the nail sticking out right here. So now we try to get to the other side. It's going to be a little more difficult with the bottom. So we'll try to pull the box up. Try to turn the box on its side. So here's the nail head. So here you can see the nail head coming out. Let me move that camera closer. So here's the nail head coming out of the box. Now all I got to do is grab that with my pliers and pull on it. Now to do that though, I'm going to set the camera down so I can hold the electrical box. I don't want to put so much pressure pulling that I push out the drywall out of the wall. Okay, so I'm ready to pull that nail out. So I've got a hold of it. Key here is to try and get a straight pull on it. The box is trying to twist. So you just gotta, there we go. So I got the nail out. Now the only thing remaining is the wires, and that can be difficult depending upon how the installer installed the box. So here you can see I've tilted the box back up straight. It was laying on its side behind the wall there. I tilted it back up straight and then I tilted it forward to pull the top of the box out first. That's going to depend whether you pull the top of the box or the bottom of the box out first. Depends upon where the cable's coming in. The cable's coming into this box from the bottom. I could see it here. Once I pried the box away from the wall, I could see the cable coming up from the basement. But if the cable was coming down from above, you would pull the bottom of the box out. Now, if you've got cables coming in top and bottom, you're just going to have a little more work to try to get those out. You might try pushing the cables up through the back if you can. That could be difficult because they have these little tabs on here. But whoever installed the electrical boxes in this house broke those tabs completely off. So in this case, it would be real easy. But you see there, in this case, I was able to just pull it right out. And I've not done any damage to the drywall. Okay, now if there had been a tab in there clamping that wire in place and putting tension on it, then, you know, try working a screwdriver in there to hold the tab open while you pull it. There's different techniques you can use. But now, I have my wire for the original outlet here, and all I have to do now is run it into the back of the new electrical box. I'll pop open a tab here, feed the cable in, and then I can put this new outlet box in all the way, and then it's got 2 screws, and I just screw those into the stud. But before I do that, I'll run the second cable in. The whole reason I pulled this box out was so I could run a second cable up to the countertop outlet. The thing to know here, the part I was trying to demonstrate here was how to get that electrical box out when it's nailed into a stud without damaging the drywall. There's probably other techniques, but this is the one I use and it seems to work pretty well. So a possible question occurred to me. Why did I take this off before I did that? And the simple answer is it makes it easier when you're trying to bend this box forward to pull it out the hole, pull it out of that hole. If you've got the full-size box in there, and it's particularly if it's an extended box, an extra large box. So here's the standard box, and then here's the box I'm replacing it with. So you can see this box is even bigger. It goes all the way to the drywall on the other side of the wall. And that's to provide more room on the inside for extra wire nuts. So by cutting this piece off with the Dremel, I was able to more easily work this box out of the wall. You can try it without cutting that front edge off, but it's harder to get to the nails. You know, I brought the nails much closer to the edge by cutting this front piece off. And so it made it easier to work on the nails. But if you think you can do it without taking this off, by all means, go for it. Okay, you can see here I have the new outlet box partially pushed in. I've run the existing wire for the outlet into the bottom, and I ran the new cable that's gonna come up here to the top and come out the new outlet that's gonna be installed up here. I'll push the box in until it's flush with the wall, and then I'll screw those 2 screws into the stud. And I'll do that on each of these outlet boxes to finish the job. It turns out for this job, I did not need to use the shears. When I use those, sometimes it can be hard to work that Dremel tool all the way around and keep it at the same, and have it meet, at the same 3/4 of an inch, and have it meet all the way around and make a clean cut like it did here. Usually it doesn't come out that way. And when it doesn't, what I do is while it's still in there, I'll come in with the shears and I'll clip that. Let's go ahead and clip it. While it's still in the wall and attached, and I can't get this out because I haven't got it cleanly cut off, I'll clip that, and then I'll grab the end of it there with the pair of needle nose pliers, and I'll start trying to just yank this part out, because a lot of times it's close enough you can just tear it out. But if you're real careful and make a nice cut all the way through, all the way around, then you may not have to do that, as was the case here. If you try cutting too far back, into this nail area where the nail comes across, that's where you'll run into that problem, and you might need to use the snips to cut through. You can also use the snips to cut through back to, this has a push-out tab on here, so they just pushed it out completely, but a lot of electrical boxes, it doesn't push out. It's designed to bend back and hold the cable. And if that's the case, what you can do is you can take the shears, long nose shears like this, and you can cut all the way back to this corner and release the tension by pulling that out of the way, so that you can slide the cable out the back when it's got that tab on there trying to hold it in. So didn't need to use it for this job, but that's why they're there, is in case you have to do one of those 2 things.